And this Juneteenth, many other Americans are using the day not just to celebrate, but also learn more about their lineage. The 10 Million Names Project is working to recover, restore, and remember the hundreds of thousands of enslaved Americans from the 1500s to 1865. Now, their mission is to unearth names and stories that will connect descendants with their own history. The chief historian for 10 Million Names, Dr. Kendra Field and Dr. Kerri Greenidge of the 10 Million Names Scholars Council join me now for more on this. Thank you both for coming on. Dr. Field, I know there are other African-American genealogy projects out there. So what makes 10 Million Names unique?
Thank you so much. It's so good to be here with you today, especially. Well, 10 Million Names is a really ambitious project aiming to recover and collect the names and stories of the 10 million people who were enslaved here on the land that became the United States between the 1520s and the end of slavery in the 1860s. That, as you suggested, is a deeply collaborative effort. It can only happen as a set of unending partnerships with longstanding organizations and individuals. The story of Opal Lee, for instance, I happen to know she was deeply involved in genealogical work beginning in the 1970s and probably earlier. But in the 70s, when Alex Haley's Roots aired on ABC, many genealogical organizations cropped up in the years that followed, including ones in Texas that Ms. Lee was involved with. And so this project is attempting to connect and kind of create the connective tissue that allows us to have one portal that leads us into all of that work, so that there will ultimately be one database we can go to and access those names.
And how does your team of genealogists and historians help use that info to try to teach about enslaved people and their experiences?
Yeah, well, I'll just say briefly, I'll turn it over to my colleague. I teach students, college students, how to research and write about their own ancestors. That's my favorite and my best and tried and true way to enter the past, right? Is to allow people to understand the relationship between the past and the present. I had the great privilege of writing my first book alongside my grandmother and my great uncles who were still living at 97 and 103. And it was a story about my grandmother's grandparents' lives in slavery and freedom. And I know what a privilege that was. And I hope through this project that kind of work is possible for many, many more Americans.
Dr. Greenidge, what are some of the challenges African Americans face when they try to research their ancestry?
So one of the many challenges is reaching that 1870 wall, as historians and as people at American Ancestors put it. Before 1870, of course, the majority of African American people lived as enslaved people in the South. And so before 1870, those census records and those records of names and records of places tended to not list or only partially list the names of people who were enslaved. And so many people researching their ancestry who are of African descent in the United States come across not being able to trace somebody prior to that 1870. Now, I should say that one of the fabulous things about this project is that it's really working in collaboration with African American genealogical societies, with people and communities who have been doing this work for years and years. And so really the project is a way to pull all that together in a collaborative way so that everybody who does this work can work together to discover the names and the histories of people who were enslaved on what becomes the United States.
And Dr. Greenidge, how do you feel now about having Juneteenth as a federal holiday a century and a half later? And is there something you think most people miss about what it symbolizes?
I think that many people tend to believe that somehow enslaved people in Galveston, Texas, did not know that they were being freed. On the contrary, Black people have these rich networks amongst themselves today, and they had them back in the 1860s as well. So people recognizing that the Confederacy was falling. Juneteenth is the day, however, when the official announcement comes. I also think we can tend to oversimplify the history, the very proud history of a celebration, as if it's just starting to be celebrated today. And as we know, and as Opal Lee's story that is so beautiful testifies, this story has been going on in communities and amongst families since 1865. And so really using those two things in this day as a day of reflection, the fact that it's a place and a time that many families and communities have held sacred for generations, and that it wasn't sort of a notion that Black people were suddenly freed and didn't realize they were free. It's sort of a culmination of years and years of the fight against slavery in the United States.
All right, Dr. Field, Dr. Greenidge, thank you both for your time today and for the work you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you.